Ladies and gentlemen, tennis fanatics, and every single Filipino who has ever screamed at a television screen, buckle up, because what just happened on center court will be talked about for years, decades, maybe forever. Eala didn't just win a tennis match. She rewrote history. She took a sledgehammer to the record books, she made the defending Wimbledon champion cry into her towel, and she did it all with the whole nation of the Philippines riding shotgun on every single point. This is the story of the upset of the year, maybe the upset of the decade, and honestly, by the time we're done telling it, you're going to want to stand up and applaud your screen. Let's set the scene, because context is everything here. Wimbledon. The most prestigious, most historic, most impossibly hallowed piece of grass in the sporting world. The kind of place where legends are made and egos are shattered, sometimes in the same afternoon. On one side of the net, we had Iga Swiatek, a 5-time Grand Slam champion, the reigning Wimbledon title holder, a former world number 1, an Olympic bronze medalist, and by pretty much every measure, one of the most fearsome competitors the sport has seen in the last decade. This is a woman who doesn't just beat opponents, she dismantles them, methodically, with the kind of ruthless efficiency that makes broadcasters run out of superlatives. On the other side of the net, a 21-year-old from the Philippines named Alexandra Eala, ranked outside the top 30 in the world, playing in just her third ever Wimbledon main draw appearance, carrying the hopes of an entire archipelago on her shoulders every time she stepped onto grass. On paper, this was supposed to be a coronation. Swiatek advances, the crowd applauds politely, and everyone moves on to talk about the real contenders for the title. Nobody, and we mean nobody, wrote the script that actually played out. Because Eala doesn't read scripts. She burns them. Let's rewind for a second, because Eala's road to this match was already the stuff of fairy tales before she even got to Swiatek. Just days earlier, in the second round, Eala found herself down a set against Maya Joint, yes, the very same Maya Joint who had already knocked out tennis royalty Serena Williams' presence from this tournament in the first round. Eala could have folded. Instead, she dug in, fought back from a set down, and delivered a jaw-dropping response, storming through to win 3-6, 6-2, 6-love. 6-love.
Tenis, evo, u prvom setu Australka je bila ta koja je izdominirala, u drugom setu uspjela je zaustaviti tu dominaciju Eala i okrenuti je zapravo svoju korist.
She didn't just win the final set, she obliterated it, dropping Joint's game to rubble in front of hundreds of Filipino fans who had crammed themselves onto court 3, turning what should have been a quiet outer court match into something that sounded more like a football stadium in Manila than a tennis match in London. That win alone made Eala the first player from the Philippines in the entire Open era to reach the third round of a Grand Slam tournament. Historic. Unprecedented. And, as it turns out, only the appetizer. Because waiting for her in the third round was Swiatek, the defending champion. The woman who, on paper, simply does not lose matches like this. And here's where the story gets deliciously spicy, because this wasn't even the first time these two had crossed paths. Rewind to the 2025 Miami Open, and it was Eala, then a rising underdog with barely anyone outside hardcore tennis circles knowing her name, who pulled off a stunning victory over Swiatek en route to a career-best semifinal run that turned heads across the entire tennis world. Swiatek, never one to let a defeat sit unanswered, got her revenge a few months later on the clay courts of Madrid. So heading into Wimbledon, the head-to-head sat at 1 win apiece, an eerily even rivalry between a Grand Slam sovereign and a scrappy underdog with nothing to lose and everything to prove. Neither woman had ever faced the other on grass. Nobody knew what would happen when these two got put on the sport's most storied surface, with a place in the second week of Wimbledon on the line. Swiatek herself admitted before the match that she found Eala's game tricky, and said the grass would likely make that trickiness even worse for her. Turns out, worse was an understatement of historic proportions. Saturday night, or Saturday evening in London, which for Filipino fans back home meant staying up into the early hours of the morning glued to their screens, Center Court hosted what will go down as an instant classic. From the very first game, there was no easing into this one. Both women came out swinging, trading blistering ground strokes, refusing to give an inch, each staring down the other like two heavyweight boxers circling for the knockout blow. The opening set became an absolute war of attrition. Swiatek, error-prone on this particular evening, was leaking unforced errors left and right, finishing the set with a staggering 27 of them, an almost unthinkable number for a player of her caliber. But give Swiatek credit, she is a 5-time major champion for a reason, and she does not go down without a fight. Eala had her chances to close out the set outright at 5-3, only for the defending champion to summon her championship pedigree and drag the set back to level at 6 apiece, forcing the dreaded tiebreak. And oh, what a tiebreak it was. This wasn't just tennis anymore, this was theater. This was drama with a capital D. Eala surged out to a commanding 5-2 lead in the breaker, the Filipino contingent in the stands already beginning to sense the impossible was within reach. Then, because nothing about greatness comes easy, Swiatek clawed back, reeling off 4 consecutive points to somehow drag herself level and even earn a set point of her own at 6-5. The tension in that stadium must have been absolutely suffocating. 1 point from stealing the set away after being on the ropes the entire time, this is exactly the kind of moment that separates champions from pretenders, and for a heartbeat, it looked like Swiatek might do what Swiatek always does, find a way. But Eala refused to blink. She dug in, saved that set point, and the two of them battled all the way to a jaw-dropping 9-all deadlock in the tiebreak before Eala finally, sealed it. After saving 4 break points along the way and needing 3 separate match points of her own to finish the job, closing out the tiebreak 11-9 after a Swiatek forehand sailed wide. An hour and 30 minutes. That's how long the first set alone took. An hour and 30 minutes of some of the most spectacular, edge-of-your-seat tennis Wimbledon has seen all tournament. You'd think after a set like that, both players would be running on fumes. And maybe Swiatek was, because what happened next was nothing short of a statement. Eala, rather than settling for what she'd already accomplished, absolutely took off. She stormed to a 4-love lead in the second set almost immediately, playing with the kind of fearless, free-swinging aggression that only comes when a player realizes, mid-match, that they truly belong on this stage. Swiatek, to her credit, tried to mount a comeback, clawing 1 break back and even saving a couple of match points late in the set to keep hope alive for the center court crowd hoping for a fight back from their beloved champion. But Eala would not be denied. Not after everything. Not after a career spent grinding, not after years of being the plucky underdog from a country with almost no tennis pedigree on the world stage. She held her nerve through a dramatic, nerve-shredding final game and converted her chance on the 3rd match point, sending a sweeping forehand winner rocketing across the court that the entire stadium simply erupted for. Final score, 7-6 in a tiebreak that finished 11-9 and 6-2. 2 hours and 14 minutes of tennis that will be replayed on highlight reels for years. And then came the moment that turned this from a sports story into something much bigger. Eala dropped to her knees. Tears streaming down her face. Overcome, completely and utterly overcome, by what she had just done. When she finally composed herself enough to speak to the on-court interviewer, her voice cracked with emotion as she tried to put the achievement into words. "I'm really emotional," she said, before adding something that instantly went viral across social media, that for legends like Swiatek, or icons like Serena and Venus Williams, an achievement like this might seem small in the grand scheme of their trophy cabinets, but for a girl who grew up in the Philippines, dreaming of a stage like this, it meant absolutely everything. She couldn't even finish the sentence. The tears took over again. And somewhere across the Philippines, in living rooms and barbershops and sari-sari stores with television sets propped up in the corner, an entire nation was crying right along with her. Let's talk about what this actually means, because the scale of this achievement cannot be overstated. Alex Eala has become the first Filipina in the entire Open era, that's since 1968, for anyone counting, to reach the fourth round of Wimbledon. Not just Wimbledon. Any Grand Slam. This is uncharted territory for Philippine tennis, a sport that, let's be honest, has never had the infrastructure, the funding, or the cultural spotlight that basketball or boxing enjoys in that part of the world. And yet here is a 21-year-old, ranked world number 32, seeded 29th at this tournament, who has just gone and beaten a 5-time Grand Slam champion and the reigning Wimbledon title holder on the most famous court in tennis. This is Manny Pacquiao knocking out a heavyweight champion territory. This is the kind of moment that gets a statue built.
And anticipates well and made that look very easy. Right outside the tram line, all the way over.
This is the kind of moment that inspires an entirely new generation of kids in Manila, in Cebu, in Davao, to pick up a racket instead of a basketball, because suddenly, impossibly, the dream doesn't feel impossible anymore. And here's the gut punch for IGA Swiatek's camp. This loss doesn't just end her title defense. It's going to cost her, literally, in the rankings. Swiatek stands to shed a brutal 1,870 ranking points from her total, a hit so severe that pundits are already speculating she could tumble out of the world's top 10 for the first time in years. For a player of her stature, that's not just a bad day at the office, that's a full-blown crisis that her team will be picking apart for weeks. And she wasn't even the only big name to fall that day. Just an hour before Eala completed her miracle, former champion and second seed Elena Rybakina was also sent packing, upset by 25th seed Elise Mertens. Wimbledon 2026 is turning into an absolute bloodbath for the favorites, a tournament where the established order is being torn up match by match, and Alex Eala is currently holding the biggest can of gasoline. But this isn't a story about an ending. This is a story about what comes next, and honestly, that might be even more exciting. Eala's reward for dethroning a Grand Slam champion? A date with Jasmine Paolini, the number 13 seed and a former Grand Slam finalist in her own right, in the fourth round, the round of 16. For the first time in her career, Alex Eala will be playing in the second week of a major tournament. Think about that for a second. This time last month, most casual sports fans outside the Philippines and dedicated tennis circles had probably never heard her name. Now she's 2 wins away from a Wimbledon semifinal, with a legitimate, board-certified Grand Slam scalp already hanging from her racket bag. Paolini is no pushover. She's reached Grand Slam finals before. She knows what the bright lights of the second week feel like, and she will absolutely be treating this match with the respect a player of Eala's newfound stature deserves. But if this run has taught us anything, it's that betting against Alex Eala right now might be the single worst wager in tennis. Let's take a moment, too, to talk about the atmosphere this run has created, because it's not just about the tennis anymore, it's a full-blown cultural moment. When Eala played her second-round match against Maya Joint, hundreds of Filipino fans packed Court 3, turning an outer court into what witnesses described as an electric atmosphere, a wall of noise and flags and chants that you simply don't expect to see outside center court at Wimbledon. Now imagine what that energy is going to look like heading into the second week. The All England Club, an institution built on hushed reverence and polite applause, is being invaded by Filipino pride, and honestly, it's beautiful to watch. This is a country with a population of over 100 million people, a country obsessed with basketball, boxing, and volleyball, suddenly discovering that they have a genuine, bona fide Grand Slam contender in their midst. Social media across the Philippines has been an absolute meltdown since the final point was struck, trending hashtags, viral clips of the match point being replayed over and over, tearful reaction videos, and messages of pride pouring in from Filipino communities scattered across the globe, from Manila to Los Angeles to Dubai to London itself, where plenty of the Filipino diaspora surely found their way into those center court stands. And let's not undersell just how gracious Eala was in victory, because it says everything about her character. In her post-match comments, rather than gloating or basking purely in the glory, she took a moment to praise her fallen opponent, calling Swiatek a phenomenal player and a really nice person, and saying she felt genuinely grateful just to have shared center court with her. That's class. That's the kind of humility that makes a superstar not just admired for their game, but beloved as a person. Because make no mistake, after this run, Eala is not just a rising tennis talent anymore. She is a genuine global sports story, the kind of athlete that transcends her sport and becomes a symbol for an entire nation's ambitions. So where does this leave us heading into the second week of Wimbledon 2026? The draw has been thrown wide open. The reigning champion is gone. A former champion is gone. The path to the title has never looked more chaotic, more unpredictable, or frankly, more exciting. And right in the middle of that chaos is a 21-year-old left-hander from the Philippines, playing with house money, playing with nothing but pure joy and fearlessness, riding a wave of momentum that has already produced one seismic, history-altering upset. Could she really go all the way? Could Eala, ranked outside the top 30 just weeks ago, actually lift a Grand Slam trophy at the most famous tennis tournament on the planet? It sounds insane to even type out loud. But then again, so did the idea of her beating Iga Swiatek on grass. And look what happened. This is why we watch sports. This is why we stay up until 3 in the morning, phone in hand, refreshing scores, screaming at empty rooms when a match point is finally converted. Because every once in a while, against every single odd stacked against them, someone comes along and does something that reminds us why we fell in love with competition in the first place. Eala just gave the Philippines, and honestly the entire tennis world, one of those moments. A moment that little kids will be talking about when they're grown adults, telling their own children about the day a Filipina beat the Queen of Wimbledon on her own throne. The dream is alive. The history is still being written. And Eala, one match at a time, one impossible victory at a time, is proving that there is no ceiling, no glass, no ranking number, no reputation too big that can stand between her and greatness. If this story got your heart racing even half as much as it got ours, do us a favor, smash that like button, because content like this deserves to be seen by every single tennis fan out there. Drop a comment below and tell us what you think. Does Eala have what it takes to go all the way and win this entire tournament? Who do you think wins the Paulini showdown? We want to hear it, all of it, in the comments. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because we are going to be covering every single twist, every single turn, every single miracle of this historic Wimbledon run right here on Court Vision Plus. This story is nowhere near finished. Stay locked in, because Eala might just be about to make even more history, and you will not want to miss a second of it.